To get started, can you just tell us a little bit about your design career?
Sure. So currently my job is VP in interactive design at HBO Marketing. I've worked at many different places over the course of my career. A lot of them have been in agencies. Um, I started out working in digital design around 1999, 2000. So yeah, it's 2020 now, so 20 years, which is
Wow.
crazy to think of.
Obviously, this year has been different. I don't think you've
Yeah.
had a pandemic in any of those 20 years. So,
No.
what do you think changed this year? Obviously, your teams probably operated differently, your companies probably operated differently, and design is rapidly evolving as well. Companies have had to catch up. What's your take on that, and what's happened this year, and what's going to happen in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question, because I think that because my team we're digital designers, and we also focused a lot on social media design, and like website design, product design. All of those things are things you can do remotely, and a lot of the tools are already built to be cloud-based to allow remote collaboration.
Yeah.
And I think, that puts us in a different spot than, other people in the industry, or even other people in the company who have different disciplines that might require like more in-person stuff. So I think in that sense that that left us in a better situation than some. But I think there's still challenges. There's challenges with people's internet. There's challenges with mental health right now, honestly, across the board. There's challenges with just people's physical safety as well. And I think that's had a really huge impact. And I think we're talking more about like personal care and mental health than we ever have been, and it's more of a consideration than it really ever has been.
How do you balance your team's mental health with the fact that you work for a demanding organization, you still have these
Yeah.
things that need to be done? How do you
Mhm.
actually effectively address that?
Yeah, I think it's hard, and I think it's a combination of many things. I think we're really lucky because on a company level there has been a lot of support and a lot of resources offered for individuals, and a lot of like conversation that started at the executive level about trying to be more empathetic to whatever situation a person might have going on. Like there are people on my team who have lost family members this year. There are people on my team who, myself included, dealing with multiple children with no child care, having to educate them at the same time as working like 40, 50 hours a week. I think what's happening is that I think we're just all trying to be a lot more understanding of each other's time, and try to make use of like blocking your calendar if somebody has a remote school class happening, or they have something else that's happening that they need to work around, um, and just kind of being a lot more like understanding of the need that we might need to cover each other for various reasons. And of course, in the past, you would cover somebody if they go on vacation or something, but I think that there's a lot more understanding that the situation is very complex, and what's going on for somebody might have more layers of complexity.
So, Cathy, I know your team has grown tremendously over your time at HBO and other places you've worked as well. What is your approach to building an effective design team? And obviously, this is changing too, right? Now you can look elsewhere with remote teams and all that. But what have you found
Yeah.
effective for leaders in growing a team?
Yeah. I mean, I think like when you're talking about just specifically design, I think that again, it's that word trips people up. They think, oh, I need people who are like just blowing me away with like all of their visuals and everything. Of course, the skill set, the craft is super important, but you also need people who understand how to build processes, design processes. So I think that like you need designers who can flex into that. I think it's important, when you look for people, to look for people who have like I want to say like at least three major skill sets that they kind of pivot between, because because that like really helps you remain agile in this universe where like, you know, Facebook changes their specs every other week. There's a new trend on TikTok every other week. Like you need to be able to, you know, design a UI in the morning, illustrate in the afternoon, and do like a motion piece in the evening. Like it's pretty crazy. So I think looking for people who have flexibility, looking for people who understand processes and are passionate about creating process. I mean, to that point, I think I'm really excited about design ops as a thing that's like come up in recent years. That was an advancement that needed to happen.
Yeah, very needed.
Yeah, because I think in the end, what like I sort of think of design teams and designers as it's a sustainable resource, or it should be. People like, you know, human beings who are talented like have a certain amount of hours they can work before they get tired and burn out. And you need to like, the way that you avoid burning people out is by planning well. And the planning, you know, planning well sounds boring, but it's actually super important. And I also think it's important to not like allow people to just iterate until the cows come home. Like you stay focused on the problem, solve the problem, move on to a different problem.
And one question on that, you mentioned these multiple skills, kind of a generalist, a designer able to wear multiple hats. What's next for that? Like what's the next hat they're going to have to wear in 2021?
You know, moving forward, inclusivity and equity in design is extremely important. It always has been important, but it's even more important now. And understanding how like what you're doing impacts your audience, and like actually like making sure the designers that are working are representative of the audience that they're designing for. And if they're not, that they're like doing research or working with an agency to understand that audience. I think that's going to be really critical moving forward.
One of the questions we love to ask is what advice you have for new entrants, new designers entering the field. What kind of things have you learned over the years that you think would be beneficial for them to hear?
Yeah. You know, I think what was really interesting is that in the beginning, nobody knew what digital design was. It had a lot of different names like new media, and other kinds of things. But I think that in the beginning, because no one knew what you needed to learn, they kind of threw everything at you. They threw 3D, I got 3D design, 2D design, motion design, UI design, graphic design, and it kind of molded this viewpoint that I have of just like your job as a digital designer is to continue to learn new trends, new technology, new software. And that I think what I've seen happen though is that there have been a lot of different fields and like kind of silos formed. Like product design didn't used to exist, and now it's like kind of its own thing that has like, you know, it is kind of separated. And there's nothing wrong with the fact that like so much has been developed and there's so much to learn. But I think it leads to like divisions that don't need to be there between different types of designers. It's really important to not get tricked into thinking you have to look this one certain way to succeed. Because it's just not true. Most of my bosses, when I was coming up in the industry, you know, because digital design didn't exist, they came from other fields. Like they came from the film industry, or they were writers, or, you know, some other type of field. And so I really embraced that like pioneerism as I was sort of moving through it. So I would say like, don't feel like you need to instantly know the one really specific thing that you have to specialize in for the rest of your career, because the truth is that you have choices, and you can decide to be general if you want to, and you can learn about many different things. Like if you're interested in illustration and motion design and 3D, like there's nothing wrong with pursuing all three of those. That'll make you more hireable, it'll make your skill set stronger. And I think there's a lot of really interesting things that come about when you sort of allow yourself to explore all the things that you're interested in. I'd also say, don't compare yourself with your classmates.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally, you know, I know that's a hard thing to do. It's easy to say, it's hard to do, but I definitely did. Definitely did my share of that. And there were so many people who seemed so glamorous and were doing all these things that I thought were so cool. But in the end, it's really just about you and focusing on your own growth. Like there's always going to be somebody who is doing something that you think is cooler. But it doesn't matter because you can get wherever you want to get if you focus on that path.
As a leader, how do you balance executing design with being the mentor, being the coach? Like how much design should a leader do versus how much should they be leaving on their team? How do you like balance that?
That's a really interesting question because I think you know, different people might answer it differently. I think for me, like I kind of see I see it sort of on this like reverse scale or something, or like kind of two carrots that sort of like you as an individual contributor, you're still managing yourself. You're still managing your own time. And that's still management. As somebody who's like a senior level manager, you're still executing on certain things. Like you should never stop. You should never say like I'm above this, that, or the other thing, because I think if you do that, like you have missed the point of what, you know, being a leader is all about, which is that it's your job to make sure it gets done. And sometimes, most of the time, that involves like not being in the spotlight, and it involves doing things behind the scenes that are just like logistical, that just help people do their jobs. And it involves helping other people shine. For me personally, like if I go the entire week without doing a single piece of design work, like my soul will die. So like I need to like feed my soul something. But I do think that like I don't love the approach that sometimes happens where like you know, like high level people get really involved in all of the little details, because I think that restricts growth, and it also causes like delays. So I do try to like allow people to make decisions and choices in as, you know, as much as it makes sense and I can.
And Cathy, thanks again for joining the show. We appreciate you coming on here and sharing your thoughts with the young designers.
Cool.